This is episode 22 of the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. Welcome to the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. I'm your host, Sergio Millis, and each week I'll bring you an inspiring person or message to help you discover how to break in and succeed in sports and life. Thanks for spending some time with me today, and let the experience begin. This episode is brought to you by Sports Business Classroom 2020. An immersive sports business training and educational experience unlike any other, taking place July 12th through the 18th in Las Vegas during Summer League. Registration for the program opened last week, and ladies and gentlemen, you do not want to miss this. It truly is a one-of-a-kind learning opportunity for anyone interested in the business of basketball and jobs in sports in general. I mean, if you dream of one day landing a job in sports, are passionate about learning, or simply want to show the right people that you have what it takes to get a job in sports, this program is for you. Sports Business Classroom combines the best of all worlds into a single package. It's great academics, it's hands-on experience, it's immersion in the Las Vegas Summer League, and it's interaction with some of the best minds working in and around the NBA. You can check out all the details for the 2020 program at sportsbusinessclassroom.com, and if you're at all interested, make sure to apply as soon as possible, as this program will fill up. Again, the URL is www.sportsbusinessclassroom.com. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your host, Sergio Millis. Today's episode, like our last episode of the Sports Business Classroom audio experience, is a little different than what you'd normally expect from the show. Today's episode is the audio from a recent Sports Business Classroom web show hosted by NBATV's Beau Estes called Hoops on the Horizon, How Do We Get There?, featuring ESPN NBA analysts and writers Kirk Goldsberry and Kevin Arnovitz. Both Kirk and Kevin are brilliant and drop a ton of great insights on a variety of topics surrounding the current state of affairs in the business of basketball. Our guests discuss the financial impact of COVID-19 on the NBA and franchises around the league, their thoughts on the league resuming play, and what a new December start date would mean for the NBA calendar. This was an incredibly entertaining listen for those who are interested in the financial impact of the current pandemic and how things might look moving forward from two of the brightest minds around the league. Hope you enjoyed the show.
Hi, hello, and welcome, everyone. My name is Beau Estes, and you're watching the third installment of the SBC Web Show. Each Thursday, we get together with a couple of folks inside the basketball industry. We chat hoops, we chat the hoops business, and this week we got a couple of heavy hitters from over at ESPN. We start off with Kirk Goldsberry, who has made the well-worn trip from cartographer to basketball analyst. He's the author of Sprawl Ball. How you doing, Kirk?
I'm doing great, Beau. How are you doing?
Hanging in there. You can see the hair's getting a little longer, but that's part of it, man. We're getting by. Next up, we've got also from ESPN and host of the Pack Your Knives podcast, Kevin Arnovitz. Kevin, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. We like your books there in the background. We understand you've read every one of them. Is that right?
No, I think like 94%, maybe.
94%. That's a good number. Before we get started, guys, we wanted to thank all of the first responders, everybody who is keeping us safe during this time, the frontline workers. The guy who delivered my pizza, I want to thank him because these people are out risking it for us, especially those doctors, those nurses. They're doing a terrific job. Also, the youth sports operators. That's an industry people aren't talking about as much, but the kids and the parents, they're feeling the effects of this. So we're hoping that we can get back to that way of life sooner rather than later. And finally, as a reminder, the Sports Business Classroom is an immersive training and educational experience. Go to sportsbusinessclassroom.com to apply today. You can also catch any of our podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, or Seeker. And now it's time to talk to our experts. Fellas, we've been in quarantine for a little bit. Let's start off with you, Kevin. What have you been up to? How have you been filling your time?
I mean, it's pretty regimented. I'm still working. There are NBA stories to be had. But apart from that, I'm doing a lot of cooking, a lot of reading. I have a movie club with my partner, which is kind of, we one of us sends the other 3 titles for the evening's viewing, and the other one picks the final one. And then we reverse it the next night. So like watching stuff I haven't seen, like that I've wanted to watch for 10 years. So, and that's kind of it. I mean, it's a pretty simple, slower paced life. And it's kind of working.
How's that movie thing work out? I mean, do you guys like it so far?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's great. It's
Expanding
fantastic.
Your taste, I guess.
Yeah.
Kirk, how you been feeling? You look very relaxed, Kirk. Everything good?
Yeah, I'm pretty relaxed, but I'm stressed out too. But a lot of repetitive days here in Austin, Texas for me. Like Kevin, I'm still working. I think the Michael Jordan documentary has been very good for our company and has provided us a lot of assignments to work on during this time. So I'm very thankful for that. And then outside of work, similar to Kevin, a lot of reading, some television watching, and I bought a PlayStation 4, which is big. I haven't had a video game console in my life in decades. So one thing that coronavirus has meant in my household is dad's playing video games again. So,
well, I have a nephew that has the what's the latest 4? It's PS4, and he's trying to get me to buy the thing. But the last thing I have in my house is a Nintendo, so I think I'd be in over my head on that sort of thing.
My folks wouldn't let me have it, so I had to play video games on the Apple IIc. Do you remember Lemonade Stand?
No, wait, your parents wouldn't ever let you have a video game?
No. And the funny thing is, they weren't strict. It was just like, we don't need this.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like we were sort of Luddites or anything. It was just like, it just never happened.
Did you ever get into video games like college or anything?
No,
like that?
And because it was this contraband, I would go to my friend's house and play Pitfall for hours on Atari.
Well, I know you guys are both pop culture, food, lifestyle guys. Kevin, we mentioned your podcast earlier, Pack Your Knives. Tell us, what else have you learned? Any new skills? Have you developed anything since we've had this sort of break from our normal life?
Yeah, like I've got some new recipes. Like, there's, cookbooks are great, but there's always, during the busyness of life, you look at a recipe and it's like, that's too complicated. Like, I don't have time for that. And so I'm starting to do the I don't have time for that ones, because
you shop normally, you go out and you shop, or do you get
it's interesting. It's a combination. Like, I've got a chicken provider from Seattle who ships. I've got, like, I order a lot of stuff online, and then these restaurants, I think because, they have so much supply, they give you these like grocery packs. Like, you can go on, like, you're ordering anything, like it's Amazon, except you want a head of lettuce, do that, like some cauliflower, get some milk, and then you drive, you pop the trunk, you don't have to get out, they dump it in the trunk in bags, and you go home. So that's kind of the way it's been going.
A weird side of this is how quickly everybody's adapted to this new way of doing things. I think people have done, in a weird way, pretty well with that. Kirk, the only thing I've really developed is I had some old resistance bands around my house. I've got those out. I use those basically now. Any new skills, any new thing you're doing?
Lots of yoga at my house, which is new. I don't want to say that I've been doing yoga for years, but I'm doing yoga every day, which is good. The gyms are closed here, of course. So instead of doing weightlifting, I'm doing yoga, which is probably better anyway. You know what I mean? It might stick. It seems like a better, more peaceful, healthier, long-term choice anyway. So, silver linings.
Any results so far?
It has loosened up my back a little bit. And you said I was relaxed earlier in the show. So maybe,
It's good. That's fantastic. Well, let's dive into some NBA stuff here. Kirk, let's start with you. Everybody's trying to figure out what the impact is going to be with this pandemic, immediate and long-term, on NBA franchises. Any thoughts on your end?
Well, I know from friends who are working for teams, it's a very stressful time. I mean, whether you're trying to oversee the draft process for a front office, or whether you're trying to oversee a sports science and performance branch of a front office, you just don't know when stuff is going to happen. And the NBA had relied upon and taken for granted a very structured calendar for years. And when that's been thrown out, you're seeing a lot of people scrambling. When's the draft going to be? End of August? Maybe. Who knows? Is there going to be a combine? I don't know. How are we going to get our draft models to work without all the data sets that we were expecting from the NCAA tournament or EuroLeague and stuff like this? So, whether you're talking about sports science, and then the cap guys are trying to figure out how much money there's going to be, who's going to pick up options. All of these things are just challenging in ways that they never have been. So, the landscape is just completely wonky. and people don't know what to do, and people still don't know what to expect. So everybody is just sort of making it up as they go along in different ways and in different parts of the organizations.
I think you hit on something there. The landscape is kind of wonky. Kevin, Kirk brought a lot of issues up. Anything you're hearing from the people you talk to? How are teams adapting, and what's the outlook in the immediate and long term?
I mean, I still think there's guarded pessimism. And what I mean by that is I think it's abundantly clear revenue is going to be way down. I think the question becomes, what happens if we don't have fans in the stands for months? And I'm not talking about the conclusion of this season with the playoffs. I'm talking about October, November, December, because then you're entering a world where player salaries, contracted amounts. Now, there's always been an escrow, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this all the time. So your salary is not exactly your salary on a shortfall year. Maybe it's a little less. And we're already seeing this in baseball, how contentious it is. Now, they don't have a salary cap, so it's more contentious. But typically in a business, when revenue is down and you're fighting over fewer dollars, that fight can get bad. And there's good relations right now between ownership and the Players Association in the NBA. I think I have one of the best labor relations among professional sports. But one of the things we haven't seen is what is going to happen when now you got to cobble together a provisional CBA. Now you've got to talk about, well, what do we do if revenue is down 20% because there's no gate in 17 cities? Or for that matter, people aren't comfortable congregating in a building with 16,000 strangers in essentially 2 city blocks. And so I think that is what we're going to watch. And what effect does it have on teams? I don't know. Will front offices go back to something structurally in terms of personnel that looks more like 2012? Where these teams that have beefed up, it's been this arms war for 8-9 years. Now, I've talked to a few executives and again, there's guarded pessimism. Well, 1 year shouldn't trigger that sort of reduction. And finally, I think the interesting question I've been asking is, what does this do to the valuation of the franchises? So I have this question. I say, what if the median franchise goes up for sale on December 15th? And it's sort of revenue's clearly down for this year, but we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. What does it go for less? And to a person, every single person says no. There are only 30 that the market corrections that happen in other industries. I always use the Phoenix Suns just because I like it as a median franchise. Mid-market, some success, a decent market, a place some free agents will go. And I always say, if that team went on the market for whatever reason, they say 1.7, 1.8 billion. I'm like, really? So that's what's interesting. I think the revenue shortfall is going to be, that could get rough. But the valuations, apparently, hey, they're Picassos. They're only 30.
Well, that's interesting because that's more guarded optimism on that side is sort of franchise valuation. We had Eric Pincus on the show last week with us, and one of the, I guess, creative ideas that he talked about as a way to inject some money is expansion, to expand and add 2 new teams now so that you can get money in. Can you imagine any other ways to improve revenue now creatively? It just seems like a difficult challenge. Kirk, is there anything in your mind that could help right away?
Well, the jersey patches are 2-3 years old now, and there's more room for more patches. If you look around the sports landscape on planet Earth, NBA uniforms are still relatively unencumbered by ads. So if things got really bad financially and teams in the league were interested in, another $20 million, $40 million check each year, the front of the jersey is there to be taken. Now that violates all sorts of traditions in American sports. But I don't know. Watching Korean baseball like everybody else, one thing that struck me too,
like everybody
along the same lines, is the teams there aren't the San Antonio Spurs or the Dallas Mavericks. They're the LG Lions. The actual city name is replaced by a brand. There's a lot of things we could do. A lot of people would view those as compromised relative to our standards in American pro sports. But man, desperate times, desperate measures. There are opportunities. Expansion is a fascinating one. I think 32 is a better number for a league in any sport anyway. And I'm not quite sure if I think Mark Cuban's the one who said, why are you going to divide my 30-piece pie up into 32 pieces or whatever. So I don't know if the owners would go for that, but that's an interesting one too. I hadn't heard that one, Beau.
Kevin, your thoughts? Any other creative ways to inject some money? I mean, it's a tough question, obviously, but it's something I imagine teams are looking at now. And not only is their schedule different, so they have to figure out a way to make some of that money back, I would imagine.
I mean, I think now you're looking at what can we sell a midseason tournament for, and they've been talking about it for years, and a play-in tournament in the playoffs. Look, that's not chopped liver. I mean, that's 6 games that, I hear numbers 90 million, 100 million when you talk about global distribution, broadcast of that product. So you might have to get creative that way. And frankly, again, those are things that I think would be additives anyway. So maybe now's the time to figure that out. Can you reduce, 4 games as they talked about for the 75th anniversary season, but compensate for that lost revenue with, essentially a 32 team tournament, bring 2 international teams in, make, give it a little novelty. So that to me is, the jersey patches, though I think advertising is going to be harder to get from corporations. I mean, ad dollars are already plummeting. But to me, those long-term products that you've been talking about, figure out how to monetize them, and let's get it done.
So it looks like, in Atlanta where I am, facilities are now opening and some teams are starting to let people in. What are you guys, Kevin, we'll start with you, hearing about a potential timetable for a return to play, if indeed that happens, and what sort of format do you imagine a new schedule would take?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think anyone who says they know just doesn't know. And just to divert for a second, one of the fascinating things about this story, and I'm sure this is Kirk's experience too, which is even the biggest decision makers you talk to, people that you call because they speak with authority about everything, they're in the dark. I mean, nobody knows. I know there's optimism this week because the players are committed and the owners are committed. Big surprise, people who stand to recoup dollars by returning to play or for returning to play. There's still a lot of practical hurdles. I mean, my colleagues, Brian Windhorst and Tim Bontemps, wrote an interesting thing just about what this bubble entails. And it's harder than you think logistically. I'm of the belief that, look, if they are lucky enough to come back, that, will there be an end to the regular season? I think only insofar as maybe there are a couple regular season games to get guys tuned up. They don't want their first game that matters or a real approximate of what an NBA game to be is game 1 of the playoffs. So maybe you have a couple what would be exhibition games, and just to get guys tuned up after their 3-week training camp, because you need that. And then I think they're going to try to get as many playoff games as possible. Playoff games are the mother's milk of the NBA when it comes to revenue. That is where the advertisers, the playoff contract is where, or the playoff games are worth 2/3 of the overall season contract. And I just think that is going to be first and foremost what they try to do. And I think if it means pushing the next season back, you do it.
Kirk, your thoughts on that as we sort of slowly progress through some markers towards resuming play. What's it look like? What does a return to play look like, and what kind of schedule could you imagine?
I think the playoffs, and maybe like Kevin said, and that's a maybe, these tune-up games. I talked to somebody from a non-playoff team yesterday, and they told me right away that the players on that team were not interested in playing. And this is confidential. This would never come out on the record. But I thought it was interesting, and it got me thinking, if you're the 10th seed in the East right now or the 12th seed, like, why would you want to go out and play 4 games? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So, the 16 teams that should play for the championship should play the playoffs. I think we all agree on that. That would be awesome. The trickiest part right now is the bottom of the Western Conference standings. And Memphis, who's had the relatively easy schedule to date, has that 8th seed, a few games over New Orleans, who's had a relatively hard schedule to date. So if you just said, hey, New Orleans, you're out, Memphis, you're in, the folks in New Orleans would have a reasonable beef to say, wait a second, we got messed up here. We got screwed by this schedule that was weighted difficult at the beginning of the year. and Memphis had the opposite. So no wonder we're a few games behind. So there are stuff like that you have to iron out. But I just don't see a team like Golden State really wanting to fire up the whole thing for a few meaningless games.
Well, and then there's injury risk too, right?
100%.
For stars, anybody like that. So I don't understand what their motivation would be. I mean, I understand that they would almost have to do it. But the other question I want to ask in this before we move on to the next topic real quick, what's a ramp up time like in your mind? Okay, we hear go and we're going to start on date X. How long do players need? And Kevin, I'll start with you, to get ready from go date to we're playing game one of a regular season game.
I mean, when I talk to folks, at least 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. You know, we're at a point now where even if you said go now, we've almost had the duration of an actual off season. And so, I mean, we're essentially telling guys it would be the equivalent of, we're just showing up to training camp. And the difference is a lot of these guys actually do a lot of serious endurance work in the off season. They haven't been able to do that. So it's not even just a regular off season where you're coming into camp to, it's not like the old days where guys come into camp to literally get in shape, but that's a minimum of 3 weeks before. And then I think this notion, the minimum of 3 weeks for what would be at least, hey, then let's go into at least a transition period where we're not talking about playoff games. So it's going to be a while if it happens.
Yeah, Kirk, your thoughts on that? To me, I can't even imagine, because the playoffs, the intensity level is different. Obviously, we've all been around the game long enough to know that the intensity level is different. From a start date, we get a date. How long till they could play game one of a regular season in your mind? What are you hearing?
Yeah, 3 to 4 weeks at minimum. And with facilities opening back up slowly, I think that makes July in play. And one key point here, Beau, that I know we've all talked about in the recent weeks, but could this actually start the NBA down a path where we're regularly starting the schedule in December and playing through August as opposed to October to June? And so this could be a beginning of that. So yeah, Kevin makes a great point. We've had this weird off season here, but if we finish at Labor Day or whatever, does that set us up for Christmas 2020 being opening day of the 2020-21 season? And there's a lot of people in favor of that already. So I think it could actually start something that's better for the league in the long term, not fighting for NFL eyeballs for 2 months and really not showing up on people's minds until after the Super Bowl in many cases.
Yeah.
I want to jump on that because that's an interesting topic. I know Steve Koonin, among others here with the Atlanta Hawks, has mentioned a December/Christmas start. Kevin, any advantages in your mind to that start? And I heard Kirk mention the NFL.
Yeah, Koonin delivered that proposal on my panel at Sloan. So let me get my soapbox out because this is a big issue for me. Let me take you to the week after Thanksgiving in 2018. You might remember the game if you're an NBA junkie. Warriors at Raptors, showcase Thursday night game for the NBA. Kevin Durant at Kawhi Leonard, still novelty, new Toronto Raptor. Durant goes for 51. It's an overtime game. Kawhi goes for 37. Let me give you a statistic. In the Bay Area, home of the world champion Golden State Warriors dynasty, that game lost to Cowboys Saints, a Thursday night NFL game in their own network. In their own market. The Warriors lost to a game between the 6-5 Cowboys and the New Orleans Saints, teams that exist 1,500 miles away. When you talk, and I can give you example after example of how the NBA gets annihilated. You talk to these guys like Koonin and the Memphis guys, they will give you examples of coming in on a Monday morning and watching their local ratings getting beat by 21, a factor of 21 to an SEC game on a Saturday night. The NBA should consider this long-term. Why are they willfully getting their butts beat every single from October to early December? I mean, I don't want to push it that far. And here's the thing, and I'll go just one more minute. I started talking to advertisers, the people who do the ad buys, because when you ask people around the league, should we do this? They all say the same thing. Tell me what the advertisers think. The advertising model is something out of 1978. This notion that the third quarter, you can't sell any ads. It's baloney. I talked to a top consumer packaged good company that sells, a Fortune 500 company that you would recognize. It's always on sports. They said, you don't think we'd like to sell products in July? I talked to Universal Pictures, the number 3 advertiser for the 2019 finals television broadcast deal. They said, you don't think we have summer vehicles that we roll out in July and August, these franchises that we wouldn't love? This idea that they couldn't sell ads, which has always been the impediment, is baloney. And the league should consider doing this. You talk about how to pick up revenue. That's one way.
Well, so Kevin mentioned a lot of really positives to this. Kirk, are there any negatives to go into a Christmas start? And I assume we finish in August. Is that about right? Is that where we target a finals in August, I suppose?
Yeah, and this might sound conceited or glib, but taking the summer vacation away from the entire community of the NBA and essentially making us work through everybody's summer vacation, and then you get this vacation in September and October, which is not aligned with the rest of the country, generally speaking. That's kind of weird. That's a minor thing, but it's on the minds of a lot of people in the front office world with children. It's on the mind of a lot of players with children. So that's an interesting part of this. But another thing that one of my students at the University of Texas brought up, he was a grad assistant for the University of Texas basketball team. And he said college basketball could do this too. And in fact, if you move college basketball to start to December or January, that sport becomes a 1-semester sport, and that's better for the student athletes. And so maybe the whole calendar of basketball should move from October-ish to December-ish. And yes, screw our family vacations get messed up. Who cares? It's a small price to pay. If business is going to be so much better, as Kevin points out with these ratings, if you're not against the NFL until or at the very beginning, and except for the very beginning, and college kids have a better experience playing college basketball because they only have to worry about 1 semester balancing classes in their sport. You could get the drafts and the combine all there, like in August and September, and everybody's happy. So yeah, there are some shortcomings. Maybe there's some ones that I don't understand, but the ones I've heard of are relatively minor, Beau.
Kirk mentioned a couple of points against it, but nothing major, it seems like, Kevin. As you analyze that, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to cut Kurt some slack because I don't want to do Christmas Day. I want to start the Wednesday of Thanksgiving Eve. The NFL owns, there's nothing on. It's actually always been a really good night for the NBA in terms of ratings, that Wednesday night game. Book in Wednesday, Friday. Wednesday, you do your doubleheader, and Friday, it's mall or ball, right? Anybody wants to go shopping on Black Friday, they go to the mall. You're a basketball fan, you watch ball, and there's nothing on. I mean, I don't want to watch Texas A&M, with all due respect to Kirk Goldsberry. Who wants that? I mean, isn't that's always the game, right? Like, who cares? So I think we can actually do this. We don't have to wait till Christmas. I think you do it. And don't forget, I think the NFL peels back its schedule a little bit. And don't forget, college is pretty much over in December. They're on hiatus essentially till the Blue Bonnet Bowl or whatever the hell is played there. I think you can split the difference here. I think that probably doesn't give you a whole vacation, Kirk. But those of us without children, imagine the shoulder season in Italy. Imagine the deals you can get in September or October. Now I'm paying 40% less than I'm not fighting off all the tourists on the Amalfi Coast. Come on.
Hey, there's good deals right now, Kevin. Go get them.
Yeah, Kevin cited a lot of first world problems there. Kirk, your response to the Arnovitz compromise there with a November start.
I think it should all be on the table. And honestly, it should come down to, Kevin brought up the 1978 average. There's a lot of this historical precedent that just needs to be reevaluated, and everything should be reevaluated. And one of my other students had a great quote in their final paper this week, which was never let a good crisis go to waste.
Rob Emanuel.
Yeah.
That's what the league needs to do here. And yeah, dude, maybe Thanksgiving is the right time, Beau. I don't know. But I could tell you that mid-October doesn't seem like the right time. Covering the league for years, being a part of a team, it doesn't feel like it. I mean, the buzz isn't around. And then, after Christmas, heading into All-Star, NFL wanes. The NFL goes away entirely, and we finally get our time. And then the national conversation really revolves around the NBA in the last 10 years in ways that it hadn't previous to that. So, look, I think we need to recognize not only NFL is a monster, but MLB is in a different spot than it was when we started organizing these 82 games and our playoff schedule and getting out of there by June. The whole thing is different. And my only point is we should reevaluate the fundamental schedule. And that would include something that's right in Kevin's wheelhouse, Beau. How many games should we play?
Kevin, the floor is yours. Go ahead. He set you up perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things you can do with the midseason tournament, and because let's just start the premise. The reason you don't want to shorten the schedule is you lose revenue, right? And we can talk about scarcity, but I think there's a lot of evidence that you're going to lose revenue, and we need to account for that. And that's where I think the midseason tournament and a play-in tournament can help. And actually, I heard a great proposal from a CEO of a mid-market team. He likes the way you want fewer games, I think, so that there's more meaning. So it would be great to go to a 64 game season, but okay, now you're losing all that revenue. What if October, if you can't move the schedule, let's say, why doesn't October become group play ahead of the tournament? You got a home and home with each division, maybe you go to 5 divisions of 6, and you only play Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to avoid the NFL. And it's sort of, these games count in so far as they will determine seedings for the midseason tournament, which isn't really midseason. It's more of a holiday. It would probably go in, from Thanksgiving to Christmas. And again, you can kind of work around the NFL. And then on January 1, you start whatever. I don't have the exact dates, but I think the idea is you don't want to lose too much revenue. You get 10 games that count but don't count. And so you can preserve that scarcity in the 64. You also get the midseason tournament and you get the play-in tournament. So again, revenue recovery, you get scarcity, you get new products, you get some novelty.
And I imagine this all gets pitched to the players as keeping revenue high, right, Kirk? Because the addition of all these games doesn't seem like it would be something that the players would just jump on and love right from the start, right?
No, in fact, the opposite, I think it's fair to say. So, yeah, you're striking some crazy balance between keeping the RSN, the Regional Sports Network, happy, keeping the Players Association happy, and, of course, keeping the owners happy and the gate consistent. So all of this has to result in more revenue. And the first thing you can't really do is strip out 15 to 20 RSN broadcasts without replacing with something major. And a midseason tournament would be awesome, but how do you replace all of those broadcasts? And I know Kevin's thought about this more than me, but it could work. It could work. It's just a question of being pretty creative. And again, now is the time. This is an opportunity to do something like that. But I'm not sure what exactly it might look like.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. We could do this all day, and I'm with Kirk. I think, look, we can look at the Fox deal with Sinclair. What's happened to the value of those RSNs even since that deal? I mean, I don't want to kick a dog while it's down, but I think, what are the chances that in 15 years, you're going to tune in to a regional sports network to watch your local game? I don't know the answer to that. And I have friends in the RSN world who might send somebody after me for saying this. But it goes back to what Kirk said. We do live in 1978 in many respects. And I'm one of these people. It's funny. I'm an optimist and I think we can do this stuff, but I'm also a pessimist in that I worry about pro sports. I worry about baseball and basketball in particular, because I just think there's too much competition for the eyeball. Like I call this the Irishman problem. I grew up in a world, and Kirk, the three of us grew up in a world where, I don't know about you, I cleared the table, I did my chores, I flopped down on the couch, and on a Tuesday night, and the answer was, what is the best sporting event on television? Because that's what I was going to watch. If it was Purdue, Ohio State, fine. I would prefer it to be the Hawks or the Braves, because I grew up in Atlanta, or Tech, but that's the world we all grew up in. There was 9 channels, or maybe it got to 24. Ooh, we got the USA Network. That was cool. WWOR, you got a Mets game, but that was it. That was the world we lived in. You have so much choice. If you were 17 years old Like, what are the chances you're going to tune in to Fox Sports Carolina for a Charlotte Hornet game, 1 out of 82 against, let me ring it up for you, the Indiana Pacers on a Monday night? What are the ratings for something like that when you have Netflix just dropped a new feature, Amazon just dropped a new series, you've got stuff saved on your DVR that you've been dying to do? Like, I just think that if basketball doesn't, the NBA doesn't solve this problem, make games more meaningful, make more games have more meaning, they're in trouble long term. And so I go to the owners and say, pay for it now or pay for it later.
And by that you mean you've got to shorten the schedule? Is that what you're thinking? I
don't think shortening is like, I kind of like this group play. Like, give more games have to have meaning. What percentage of regular season games right now have meaning? And when I mean meaning,
the European soccer model, right? You've got a Champions League going on one side, and you've got your La Liga schedule at the same time.
Right, and you have fewer games, so 64 is cool because, I mean, as Kirk can tell you, a little more randomness. Teams can hang out. You know, a 5-game winning streak all of a sudden means you're in the hunt because you've reduced the number of games that qualify you for the playoffs. But then you also have this tournament, which matters for 2 or 3 weeks, where you'd ultimately be in the doldrums of the season. And then you have this group play, which is a novelty at the beginning of the season because, hey, I don't want to face if it's the Warriors or the Clippers or the Lakers, I don't want to face them in the first round. That's kind of preposterous. Those are that's almost your conference tournament, so to speak. And so all of a sudden you've got meaning for the first 6 weeks of the season. Right when that ramps down, Christmas Day comes. That's meaning. We love Christmas Day. It's a great day. And then you sort of start a season where, all right, it's reduced number of games, but you don't lose the revenue because you've been getting revenue for the last 8 weeks.
Well, and if there was ever an opportunity, like we pointed out, now's the time for big change. We're in a crisis. We can make changes now and see how it shakes out. I'm an NBA TV guy. I know you guys are both ESPN guys, and you've got this wonderful Last Dance going on right now. Kirk, I read an article you wrote recently about how Michael Jordan would do in today's NBA. So I want to get both of your thoughts on this. Kirk, you first, since you wrote the article. Tell me, how does number 23 fare if he's out there today?
Well,
he could be okay.
I'm a child of the 90s, so I'm biased, but he would kick ass. Long story short, I'm not worried about him. He's literally the greatest athlete, aside from maybe LeBron, that I've ever seen on the floor. More than that, his body type is actually better for today's game than it was for his era. He's a 6'6" wing that is fast, quick, balanced, can jump out of the gym. And I'm assuming if we're talking about Michael Jordan playing in 2020, that he was born in 1990 or 1995, sure. And he's going to be just fine from 3-point range because he grew up on courts with 3-point lines on them, unlike the real Michael Jordan. But yeah, dude, I'm not worried about Michael Jordan. In my opinion, he's the greatest competitor the league has ever seen. And he would have gotten himself to the top of the league no matter what era he played in.
Kevin, are you comfortable with Michael Jordan's chances in a modern NBA?
Yeah, I mean, Kirk, in my opinion, has been the voice of record on this notion, and I agree 100%. And to his point, like, and when someone comes to me with, but he didn't hit from, I was like, is anyone under the impression that if you told a 21-year-old Michael Jordan, hey, look, 3-pointing is going to be an essential part of success in the NBA, that dude wouldn't be shooting like 400 a day? And like, I mean, he would have been a 44. I mean, he would have been a 42% 3-point shooter. And Lord knows what we've averaged, Kirk. I mean, Kirk, in a 100 possession league with 3-pointers with the frequency, I mean, what do you have as his PPG?
I would get to 35 pretty easily. I think one way we looked at it is that we bump up his efficiency because there's no hand checking, and you assume that he can shoot from 3, and so
he's not getting the crap knocked out of him.
He's got
load management. So if he had any sensible coach, he would be playing like Giannis style minutes, or Tim Duncan style minutes, 30, 34 minutes a game, not the 42 he was playing. But regardless, dude, he's a monster. Like Kevin pointed out, like a 21-year-old Michael Jordan sees Steph Curry out there shooting threes, getting all this attention. Like, the dude is he's just, if we've learned anything from the doc, Beau, it's that the dude was on a different level in between the ears. And
that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
That's the work ethic. Okay, I see a deficiency in my game, the modern game. I've seen players in the NBA that have bridged this 3-point era, that have needed to improve 3-point shooting. And I think there's examples of players who have been able to do it when it's a priority, when you need to do it. I think they are able to do it. One of the things I think about, when I think about Michael Jordan, Doc Rivers, and it may have been in your article, Kirk, I've read so many of these Michael Jordan articles now, called him the best superstar defender the league has ever seen. I imagine, Kevin, Kurt, his defense transitions as well.
I mean, again, my theory on Jordan is if you tell him, here are the terms of the game, he's like, okay, thank you. Now I will go beat you. Just tell me the terms and I will succeed defensively or offensively.
Yeah, I agree. Kirk, he's going to be okay defensively.
If you asked the scout in 2020 to draw a picture of the ideal defensive specimen, Michael Jordan wouldn't be far from that picture. He 6'6", as fast as they come, as quick as they come, as smart as they come, with length. Come on, he's perfect. He's Klay Thompson, but with Russell Westbrook speed. He's the dream defender.
Well, Kirk, I know you're in Texas now. We wanted to hit on something a little bit off basketball. What's the future of South by Southwest now with all this going on? What are you seeing there?
Now, one theme that's come out here today, guys, is we don't know much. And the organizers of South by Southwest got crushed this year. And it's part of the heartbeat of our town. So we're hoping, I was going to interview Masai Ujiri at South by this year, and I was really looking forward to that. And we lost that opportunity, and countless other people like myself lost those things. That said, it was the right decision to do it. That said, that company, South by Southwest, has a challenge. Not unlike the NBA's challenge. How do we have South by Southwest in 2021? And how do we keep it safe? Because the events like South by or Mardi Gras or NBA All-Star, for that matter, seem to be among the most dangerous things for this particular virus. A bunch of people getting on airplanes, coming into crowded cocktail party environments. That doesn't seem like a safe thing to do anytime soon. So, hey, we're going to learn a lot in the next 4 months, 5 months. God willing, we'll have some vaccine options potentially, but we don't know. But man, I just hope that the things that make Austin, Texas special, the food scene, the music scene, South by Southwest, we got to find a path forward to keep the soul of the city alive. And I think we will.
Kevin, last thing for you, and I think this is some of our Hall Pass staff really wants a pro tip at this point. Favorite LA restaurant for takeout right now? You're on the line. What are you seeing, Kevin?
All right.
Number one.
Bavel and Bestia, same chef, same concept. They do these family dinners. It's ridiculously affordable for a very high-end restaurant. You take it home, it's like 6 courses, but you eat it in the comfort of your own home. You pop the trunk, it's put in there. Manuela's another one I love. And good old Chinese food, Newport Seafood. The great news is you can get out to San Gabriel Valley from central Los Angeles in like 19 minutes. So now's the time to go explore all those places that are too far.
All right, fellas. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure talking with you. And I know our SBC students who are watching this, everybody else really got a lot out of it. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Beau.
Thanks.
All right, and that'll do it for the 3rd edition of our SBC Web Show. I'm Beau Estes. Go to sportsbusinessclassroom.com for more information on our program. And finally, thank you so much for watching, and thanks once more to our guests.
And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed episode 22 of the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. You can find the show notes for everything we discussed at sportsbusinessclassroom.com/web-show. Please let us know what you thought about the format and if you learned something from this episode. And please share it with your friends, share it with your family, and anyone you think might be able to get something out of it. And if you really got a lot of value, please take a few minutes to review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast. And as always, we want to hear from you. We do this show for you, so if you have any thoughts or comments, you can leave a comment on the site or send us your questions on social media by tagging us at Sports Business Classroom. Big thank you to our sponsor, Sports Business Classroom Online and Hall Pass Media, and thanks again for listening. Stay safe out there, guys. We will see you here next week on the Sports Business Classroom audio experience.